Good morning. I'm Sarah Biller, co-founder of FinTech Sandbox, and must admit, a fangirl of our two guests today. I am just thrilled to be here to talk to you all about what you're doing for small business owners. As we know, small business owners are the powerhouse of the global economy. They need our help today more than ever as we're coming on the other side of the COVID crisis. But more importantly, as we design a future where we're strengthening Main Street. And so I just really want to say on behalf of the FinTech Sandbox team, the entire FinTech community, as well as those who are tuning in for Boston FinTech Week, Ashley and Steve, I can't think of two better people to talk about small businesses and how we're strengthening them today. So what we're going to do today is we're going to spend a few minutes together just in dialogue on Eastern Bank's vision for future innovation. Steve, you as a leading entrepreneur in space, and really unpack what's going on at Monet. And so, Ashley, we're just so honored to have you with us today. Can you give us a brief introduction of yourself, how you got down this sort of windy path to leading Eastern Bank's digital labs?
Sure. And ditto goes for everything you just said, Sarah. I think Steve and I are just as excited to talk with you this morning and so excited to represent Eastern and Monet at Boston FinTech Week. It's going to be a great week. So excited about the conversation. So my name is Ashley Nagel-McMahon. What a long, strange trip it's been in terms of my career. Always knew I would go into business, really liked numbers, strategy, all that good stuff. And really sort of got into wealth management at a very small company, wanted to learn more about the global economy, switched to a larger company, traveled all around the world, did lots of cool stuff, and really had a project where I was working in strategy, and it was really all about, the emerging sort of connection between finance and technology, what we now call FinTech. And I really caught the FinTech bug. And from then on in my career, really just dedicated myself to learning more about the space, and really it excited me to learn how financial technology and FinTech could really transform financial services as we know it and really help customers. Like we're talking about small businesses today. So not only as us as consumers, but how can we use technology to really help businesses do better and really take advantage of all these cool digital tools. So I started at Eastern Bank 3.5 years ago, and I'm head of Eastern Labs and the chief digital strategist there. So our sort of role here is to incubate new ideas, work with the FinTech community, really talk with our internal stakeholders, get all the employees at Eastern excited, and then figure out how we can use sort of new FinTech products or build new technology to help our customers.
Yeah, Ashley, I love that. And I think we all realize how fanatic Eastern is about serving the needs of its customers. And I don't think there's any better evidence than your partnership with entrepreneurs, your internal incubation. And then, Steve, you've now come onto the scene with what we consider really some groundbreaking work on behalf of small businesses. And can I get you to introduce yourself as well before we kind of dive right in, which you can see I'm really anxious to get there. So first, just a little bit about you, Steve.
Sure. No, and echoing Ashley's point, great to be with you. Really excited about Boston FinTech Week. So I'm Steve Dow, one of the co-founders and CEO over at Monet. I have a background in banking as well. I've been in financial services my whole career. And prior to this was at, as we like to say, a proper bank. I ran strategy for a regional bank for about 5 years, not Eastern, another bank. And then got involved with a small business group over there and ran that group for a couple of years. And really got to see, some of the issues that small businesses have interfacing with their banks, as well as some of the struggles that banks, tend to have serving those small businesses. And as you said, Sarah, small businesses are a huge part of the economy, and they need much better service. So I was super excited a couple of years ago when I got connected with Ashley and Eastern and the other folks who got Monet going about what we can do to really help small business owners.
And Steve, I love that perspective because I'll say it a different way because I think we want to learn a little bit about what Ashley's doing in the lab and then turn it back to you. But you just kind of reminded me that you're really meeting these customers where they are. They actually have a different need a different sort of appetite for technology, and just the excitement that you just brought between your experience in a strategy role and now actually being that innovator going onto the streets. And Ashley, could you just share a little bit with us about how these ideas come about? What's your day job like at Eastern?
Sure. So I would say, one day isn't the same as the next. We're always doing different things, and we really ground ourselves in the needs of our customers. So first and foremost, we look to research, right? So whether it's internal research, whether we're talking with our employees, we're talking with experts that have been in the space, whether we reach out to our partners, talking to customers is a huge part of what we do. And just understanding their needs, their wants, their jobs to be done, and then how do we make our products and services sort of fit those needs and create solutions for them. So we look sort of what I like to call like the inside out, right? Like we look from the inside and we get ideas from employees, we get ideas from the lab, we get ideas from customers. And we also look externally and we watch trends, right? We're up to date on the latest research. We're always looking at data. And we sort of marry that with what our business priorities are. So, there's lots of ways you can run a lab. And the way we choose to do it is Eastern is very tied to our business strategy. So we're very focused on our customers, especially the small business segment. We want to make sure that we're providing them needs. So we spend lots of time interviewing those customers, talking with those customers, having them beta test things for us, and just understanding what we can do to make their lives better. So again, that could be tweaking the product, that could be partnering with a FinTech, that could be building it internally. The execution of it really depends on sort of where we want to be in this space. But again, lots of research, lots of talking to people. We don't want to be sort of isolated in the lab. We want to make sure that we're bringing in our Eastern colleagues and that we're designing things as a more holistic team.
Yeah, Ashley, I love that because you just talked about a seismic change, by the way, in the way banks are working with their customers. You're not sitting behind the scenes; you're actually out there. And Steve, I think it just really, if you marry this with your vision for Monet, your partnership with Eastern Bank really is on the forefront of this type of change. Can you share a little bit about Monet and just in that context, what it meant to partner with a bank like Eastern?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, we did, and that Ashley did as well, we did a lot of research in developing what ultimately became Monet and understanding more about small business. And so I think, there's a couple of observations that we had that really formed the vision for the company, which is small business owners, are pursuing their passion, whatever that is. If they're a restaurateur, a machine shop owner, or whatever it is, that's what they want to spend their time on. They do not want to spend their time on finance, accounting, and banking. They know that they need to. And also many small business owners aren't necessarily trained in that, in those disciplines. So they need help there. But because they're small business owners, they don't have the wherewithal, to have a finance team or, a CFO or something like that. So they're playing that role somewhat reluctantly. And so that's where we really want to help. And that's, we consider Monet effectively a digital CFO for those small business owners. So we connect to their accounting platform and provide, cash flow forecasting, tailored advice, et cetera, to really help that business owner understand where they are and where their business financials are going, so that they can be more confident and spend more time on the things they really want to spend time on, which is running the business. So I think, working with a partner like Eastern has been really nice. I mean, Eastern, as you mentioned, super forward thinking as it relates to experience and technology. And they've been great partners helping us, really, sort of work with their customers, work with their bankers to see what the market needs. We spend a lot of time with business owners, spend a lot of time with bankers, understanding how we can continue to evolve and continue to sort of give the tools and features that small business owners want, as well as ways that the bank can serve those customers, more effectively.
Yeah, Steve, thank you for that, because I hear a common thread between you both in your respective strategies, and that's really strengthening these small businesses, filling gaps that they might have, whether it's a knowledge gap about finance. And it's not a disparaging comment. It's just that not everyone has that same knowledge base. all the way through to perhaps some helping them understand and think forward. Do you mind, could both of you share just a little bit, some of the key things you're doing to really improve the strength, the financial security, I guess really is probably the better word, of these small business owners, and what steps they're taking with Monet? Steve, why don't I ask you that question first? I'll stick with you, and then Ashley, go back to sort of how you envisioned being with your customers at Eastern Bank through this application.
Yeah, so we're doing a lot. So, simple thing, or, I guess standard things like cash flow forecasting. Many business owners don't maintain a cash flow forecast. So we're doing that for them. We're helping them tweak that over time so they can see where their business is going, so they can have confidence, that they'll, that they don't need to, sort of bring in additional funding, et cetera. I think there's a stat that's floating around that 80% of businesses that fail because of cash flow issues, not other sort of fundamental reasons for the business. So, getting that one taken care of, helping them understand where their cash is going, and then things that they can do to optimize that. We do a lot around education, and not just academic education, like this is an accounts receivable, this is an accounts payable, but actually using their own data and showing them if they can reduce that payables by X number of days, what that does to the business. So really impactful education as well. And then we're looking at additional features like industry benchmarking. A lot of these business owners, this is their life's work, and they don't know how they stack up in their industry. So being able to tell a pizza shop owner in a small town, hey, your gross margins are sort of similar to industry, or there's things that you can do to make it better, is really helpful to someone like that who doesn't have the time to research that or even the resources. So it's things like that to really, again, help give these business owners a sense of where they stand and things that they can do to make better financial decisions going forward.
Amazing. And Ashley, just thinking about that broad swath of capabilities that's resident in Monet, help us understand Eastern Bank's strategy for working with its small banking client, its customers, business class customers. Forgive me for stumbling over my words.
Sure. So I think, we like to take a holistic approach, right? When you look at the small business market, it's across industries, right? It's not one size fits all. So, we take a real digital plus human approach and pair that together. We need to be in the community with branch locations. Our people, our business bankers, our branch managers, they participate in community activities. They're on nonprofit boards, right? We're working with community organizations and nonprofits. We're working with government organizations, right? It's really, it sounds funny, but it takes a village. There's this whole ecosystem of players that, have services for small businesses, and banks are part of that ecosystem. So we want to make sure that we're pulling on all those threads to make sure that our businesses have services sort of across the board. And I think from a digital perspective, this is one of the reasons, one of the many reasons we sort of love the Monet service, is because it's really taking that pain away from small business owners in this sort of like, I'm doing my business stuff, maybe nights and weekends. And that's what we heard from our research, right? That, they're doing the thing they love every day. Sort of books and records are, I'll do that after dinner. I'll do that on the weekend, right? When my business isn't open, and I'll catch up. So being able to provide them with digital services that help push them alerts, right? And give them insights based on their own data. It goes from a very reactive sort of like, I have to do this, or I have to check this out, to taking some of the stress off the business owner to say, hey, like this gets pushed to you now. And I think at the end of the day, when you think about a strategy for how you serve these customers, you really have to think of those jobs to be done. Like, how do I make my business owner customers' life easier, right? And this is one of the ways you do it. You provide them digital tools that have convenience, that are easy to use. Steve mentioned that have an educational component that can help them see things that maybe would take them hours, right, to look through a report or create a report to do that, and really give it to them proactively.
Yeah, I just want to add one example of that is to Ashley's point about being proactive. So as everyone knows, small business owners have been, rather stressed over the last year and a half. And when the new round of PPP came out earlier this year, there were some new qualifications to it. You had to have a certain revenue decline and all this math you had to do to see whether or not you were eligible. we did all that for the users of the platform, and we proactively sent a notification out saying you are eligible based on the calculations that we've done on your behalf. And we had several business owners come to us and said, I had no idea I was eligible for a new PPP loan. I never would have bothered to apply unless you told me. I got a PPP loan, and really helped my business sort of stabilize over the beginning part of this year. So it's just a great example of using data, making it meaningful for users, and putting it, sort of being proactive and serving it to them.
That's one of that is the reason why I love my job, right? To hear stories like this, when you see products and you see businesses really benefit from the services you provide, it makes your whole lifetime, right? We helped business owners at the end of the day. And that's what we really want to do.
And Ashley, I love that, because right over your bank's mission statement, join us for good. And it is a legitimate, you walk the talk every day. And it is a legit statement, and makes me so happy. I'm going to ask an awkward question. It's going to be awkwardly worded. I'll just word it, everybody who's listening. But so Eastern Bank has spent a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of thoughtfulness around Monet. But you're not everywhere. Can Monet be used by other banks? Like, how do customers find you, Steve? What's the distribution strategy? How do we put you in another community outside of Eastern Bank? Or Ashley, is this something that you've built for Eastern Bank clients? How does this all work?
I can start, Steve, and then you take it over. So yeah, in the lab, we incubate different products and services, and we work with a lot of different partners, and Monet's one of them. And it is a separate company. So while, we sort of started together, Monet's its own thing. We are a client, and we use it for our customers. And like Steve said, we sort of used it to test and make sure that it was the right thing and get it started. But we want as many business owners to access it as we can. So that's why it's a separate company, and Steve can work with whatever bank he wants, which is awesome. So Steve, I don't know if you want to take, over from the distribution strategy.
Sure. Yeah. So certainly, Eastern's clients, can use Monet through Eastern's channels, and Eastern has actually been great about opening it up to some non-customers as well through some of their partner organizations. But yeah, we work with other banks as well. We're very much a bank-focused distribution company. So I'm a former banker. We have lots of other folks on the team who are former bankers who really understand banks and bank technology and what it means to enable banks. So we don't have a direct business, unfortunately, so you can't come directly to us to get Monet. We do go through banks exclusively, but that's our approach. Is we want to help banks. Some of the really large banks, the sort of the mega banks, have created their own proprietary tools that are similar to ours. And so where we see our place in the world is helping Easterns and community and regional banks compete with some of these mega banks. But also helping their small business customers thrive. So that's where we're squarely focused these days.
Steve, thank you for that. And it just gives me an opportunity to shout out to both of you to think more holistically about what it means to raise our economy, raise up our small business owners. It's a tremendously important secular trend we're in FinTech, where you see this adaptability and this willingness to support. And it really makes me want to ask Ashley, because we're so thrilled to have Monet out there. How are you going to work with additional entrepreneurs? Do you have a strategy there? On your path with other entrepreneurs?
Yes. So we have almost like a decision matrix and a process that we use in labs to work with either different ideas or different partners. So we'll go through and say, okay, like, where do we want to focus for the next 6 months or the next 12 months? And we'll go through a list of ideas, and then we go through almost like a testing phase. So we'll do a lot of research, right? We'll test out a lot of things. Some of those things don't work out, and that's okay. It's always good to have, to try things and have them not be successful. So we go through this sort of pressure testing phase where we say, okay, how's this going? Can we run an experiment? What do we want to prove? What's the success metric? And then we'll go through a series of tests, and then those ideas sort of move down the path. And as they move down the path, sort of the number of ideas you kind of are working on gets slimmer and slimmer and slimmer until you kind of come up with like, oh, this is what we want to test in the marketplace. Or, we really think we've nailed a potential need in the market or a job to be done that we can really, have a competitive advantage for or whatnot. And then from there, we decide, do we sort of want to build it internally? Do we want to go out with partners, kind of like we did with Monet? Do we want it to be a separate entity? And we kind of go through all that. So it's a process that we use that works really well because it allows us to try things, but try things in a very small way, right? An experiment. So you're not working on a project for 2 years, 3 years with nothing in the market. We're able to iterate and really try things out sooner rather than later and get those results and decide, oh, this was a really bad experiment. Like let's do something else. Or, oh, we were really flawed in our thinking there. And we can do that in a very safe, incubated space before we roll it out to customers.
Actually, I love that because you and I have been colleagues and friends and co-collaborators for almost a decade now. And so I know the rigor in which that big brain of yours takes ideas through. So knowing that and knowing how hard it is knowing exactly how hard it is to get through your funnel and get on the other side, Steve, you did it. You and the Monet team did it. And it makes me wonder what's coming next for Monet. Knowing that Ashley is, developing a pipeline of future ideas. You too, Steve, probably are envisioning really the future we wanted to talk about here at Boston FinTech Week, one that was inclusive, it was sustainable, it mattered, it impacted everyone. But certainly any future ideas or plans you want to share with us about the product roadmap for Monet?
Sure. No, we're super excited. The one thing I'll say to start is, the roadmap is largely driven by what the users are telling us. So we have lots of users, some at Eastern, some elsewhere. We're talking to them all the time, asking them what their pain points are for their business. What can we do to help them? And same thing, we're talking to bankers too. What are your observations of your clients? What are the things that they tend to run into? To our earlier point, how can we be proactive? So we've got a lot of things on the roadmap to help those business owners, whether it's industry benchmarking, additional notifications about their finances, but also with the bank. You mentioned sort of being proactive. If we see something in a business, if their cash is getting a little bit tight, we want to get ahead of that as much as we possibly can and say, hey, now might be the right time to talk to your banker about a line of credit, or whatever it might be. If we see that they're planning something, we want to get that banker involved early on. They don't certainly don't have to, and we have a great privacy policy in place where we're making observations to the business owner, and we're not just sort of showing their data to the bank, but we're creating those moments where it makes sense for the two parties to come together. So continuing to build on that, I think, and there's also some fun stuff that we're doing around integration, sort of making Monet a deeper part of the experience at the bank. So when you're a business owner, you're going to the bank, sort of modularizing, if you will, some of the Monet features and making those part of your everyday experience with the bank.
Steve, I love that as well. You can tell I'm so enthusiastic about what you're doing, just really passionate about idea. And how much of that sort of nudging requires some additional financial education for the small business owner? I heard you say it earlier, and it just occurs to me, we probably just for a minute ought to think about where we're heading with sort of education and helping a small business owner. You're alerting for them, but then they have to go out and get a line of credit. How important is it as part of your roadmap, and then Ashley, maybe yours, to help our small business owners even further understand how they go about accessing, once they know, accessing those lines of credit or other banking services?
Yeah, I think there's two parts of it from my perspective. So one is just notifying, when we see something. And one of the things that we found that's really quite interesting with our platform is if we can send someone a message, whether it's email, text, or whatever, that's highly customized around their business, we see tremendous engagement. I mean, we did a campaign recently where we had a 90% open rate on emails, which is effectively unheard of in financial services. But the reason we think is the messaging was highly tuned to the audience. And it told them something that they were really interested in about their business. So I think that's one is sort of serving them notifications, serving them ideas, serving them insights that really are important to them and that resonate with their business. Because again, they're focused on the other stuff. They don't want to spend the time on their finances. So that's number one, is just sort of, making the alert, getting them notified about it. But then the other piece of it is explaining why this matters, right? So no business owner wakes up in the morning and says, I need to get a line of credit today. What they think about is, I have an office fit out I want to do. I have a marketing campaign I want to run. And a line of credit might be the mechanism that serves that. So connecting those two things, so as we're seeing their financials, as we're seeing what they're doing and some of the planning that they do, making that connection, saying, hey, look, you're about to go buy, a bunch of equipment. Here's the way to do that. Here, go talk to your banker about it. Here's a financing mechanism that'll really help you sort of meet the goals that you have for your business. So I think those are the two pieces for me that help those business owners make better decisions and help them understand kind of where things are going.
Yeah, and I would say from the bank side, what we really want to do is deepen those relationships that we have already with our small business owners. There's a lot of trust with your contact at Eastern, your relationship manager, your branch manager, your banker. So it's really connecting those two. It's saying, hey, it's alerting them through Monet and then encouraging them to have a conversation, right? And say then the banker could say, yeah, this is what we're going to talk about today. And it really allows that, again, that human and digital collaboration. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I think the hybrid is the key because sometimes you do want to talk to a human. So it doesn't have to be, 100% digital experience. It's using that digital experience to make your conversation more customized, right? To make sure that you're connected to your banker in a more deep way. And making sure that relationship gets even more solidified. And again, we have some really, really knowledgeable employees here at Eastern, and allowing them to participate in that and really provide those insights where maybe a customer wouldn't think to ask that question, right? Or wouldn't think to bring up that piece of data. It's really helping both sides of the equation do better for the business owner.
And actually, we've talked for a long time about the power of technology to personalize outcomes in financial services. And that you have arrived here with this capability is really mind-blowing, I think, for most people who are listening in, because we have wanted for so long to be that place where you can get someone to action what's in their best interest and introduce them to an expert. We've known that the technology is not a substitute for that, but it's critically important. And Steve, you made the earlier observation about the ability to mine data effectively, make those nudges, to push those alerts. And I just think, the combination of everything you've talked about really remind us that we can build a sustainable future for our small business owners. We don't have to, live in this world where you go down Main Street and buildings are boarded up. It's such a great place to be. And if you had you, Steve, as an entrepreneur, and Ashley, you as an observer of the FinTech community, you were sitting with us in 3 years from now, right? 36 months is a lifetime, as we know, in the world of FinTech. But really, what would you hope that the FinTech community has done to even further engage and strengthen the small business owner? And by maybe virtue too, Ashley, the banking sector who serves those clients. Is there anything, Steve, maybe you go first as the entrepreneur and the guy who swings for the fences every day.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of exciting stuff happening now. One of the sort of longer term hypotheses we have is around small business owners and their operating system. And it sort of changes by industry, but you think about, local companies like a Toast, right? So if you're a restaurateur, Toast is your operating system. And you can sort of go down the list by industry. And further, one of the exciting things to us is, continuing to work with our, banking and financial services partners and get maybe deeper embedded into those operating systems, so that those business owners can see, how many tables are turning and how many, takeout orders they have, and then get some of those real-time insights sort of right in that thing that they're always in. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff, and then taking maybe some of that data too to help augment, some of the insights that we're giving to further, sort of just deepen that sort of data view of the business. And then also in turn, sort of deepen the insight value that we can provide to the business owner, and their, financial partner as part of that. So that's one thing that we're working on that, hopefully will come to fruition over the next couple of years.
Yeah, Steve, just imagine for a minute your technique and your understanding of a small business enabled them to more efficiently, for instance, order lettuce from their local farmer. Right? You just had that fully integrated sort of capability. And it's just the visioning of what can happen when you have these concentric rings of value and understanding, as you just said, at the operating level. So such a powerful vision for where Monet sits today. Ashley, what about you? Where do you want to see the FinTech entrepreneurs knocking it out of the park?
If I had to pick a place, I agree with Steve. It's this idea of more intelligent financial services, right? Using the data, using tools that really personalize the experience for business owners, right? You see that a lot on the consumer side, right? That you have very personalized services at scale, but how do you do that for the small business community? So really taking that a step forward and really thinking about how we collaborate together. And I think there's some maybe like made up tension between financial services and FinTech, and one needs to win out over the other. But I think it's a chance to collaborate, and there can be some really great partnerships. It doesn't have to be an us versus them, right? Banks can innovate. FinTech can work with banks or other financial services provider. At the end of the day, the customers all benefit from us working together. So I would just love to see, again, more collaboration, more partnerships. You don't just want a vendor. You want partners. You want people that are really passionate about the underlying customer, whether that's a person or a small business owner or a commercial corporation, right? Or a nonprofit. You want to make sure that you're providing that value to the customer. And you can do that through all sorts of ways with technology.
Ashley, I love that. I'm so tempted to dive in with you all on interoperability and all those dorky things, but I think what we should leave it with is something that you and Steve have both said, and I'm just going to draw it here and thank you with this comment. You're enabling people to do what they love, where they are. That is just the hallmark of like an amazing entrepreneurial vision and bank that empowers it. And so on behalf of the entire FinTech community everywhere who got goosebumps listening to you all talk about what you're doing and where they can go, I just want to thank you. And we'll see you again in 3 years, maybe sooner, I hope. But we'll really envision a brighter future together. So thank you both. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah. Pleasure. Really appreciate it.
See you all at the next session for FinTech Week. Bye, everybody.